I guess I'll get started. Thank you for your patience and for sticking with us. I hope that I'm going to make your next 45 minutes to an hour worthwhile. When I was thinking about putting this presentation together, my main focus was not to create more stress. So originally I called it 10 tips for surviving teaching online. And I thought if I do 10, 9, 8, then I'm adding some more stress. And normally when I do presentations, if you've ever seen any of my presentations, they're full of color. And I chose one of the most subdued color palettes. Well, not one of, it is the most subdued color palette I've ever done. And one of my points in doing that is to say that when we're teaching online, there's a lot going on, and the simpler we can make it. So if you're using a gallery view for your students, it's really good, and it's really nice to see everybody, but you may find it extra stressful. So you may want to go to speaker view if you know how to do that. And I do want to talk a little bit more about platforms in a moment. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll. And I'm asking, what's the worst thing about teaching online? Is it exhausting? It's hard finding good resources. It's keeping students interested, or it's guilt that you aren't doing enough. And I came up with this list because basically, you know, I find perhaps all of these to be stressful for myself. Right now, it's looking like exhausting is number one. You know, I think a lot has already been written about Zoom exhaustion. And I do want to talk that there are a number of platforms, and I'm familiar with 2 or 3 of them because my husband also teaches online. And I prefer Zoom, and I'll talk a little bit about why during this presentation. So I've got 54 out of 70 people who have voted, and I'm going to end the poll simply because I'm going to try not to keep you here any longer than we have to. So 44% say that it's exhausting, and 22% say keeping the students' interest. And I think that that's completely valid. In fact, if I did a little bit of research, and teachers are saying that it's like being a beginning teacher all over again because you don't know what works or doesn't work well. And I will say that I've been teaching for almost 40 years, and I still don't know that a lesson I plan, I don't know if it's going to work well. So if you're a new teacher, I just want to let you know that what happens is you kind of get over yourself, and if it doesn't work, you go, gosh, that did not work. The other thing that people say, that planning time has increased either slightly or significantly, and some people are saying that they're exhausted. So what my goal in this workshop has been to introduce to you what I'm going to give you. I was really thinking I should download a little clip of Oprah going, and you get a new car, and you get a new car, because I'm not just going to show you things that you can do. I'm going to give you what my plans. So stay tuned. All right, so tip number 1 is forgive yourself. And, you know, that might be a little bit surprising for some people, but one of the hardest things for me is I'm a really, I really want to do well. Everything I do, I want to get A. And often the things that I plan don't work out. I've been trying to do assessments with my lower level class, and they cannot figure out how to submit them. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And so I really feel like I'm not able to do my job the way I would normally do my job. And so tip number 1 is forgive yourself. And that's why every slide is going to have a be kind to yourself button on it, because I think the most important thing we can do to survive teaching online is to forgive ourselves. The next thing I thought I would show you is what my setup looks like. And you want two things out of your teaching setup. You want to be visible, so you need enough light. One of the things that people have mentioned to me is that I'm easy to see, and that helps them to pay attention. So when you say you're losing your students' interest, it might be because your room is a little bit dark. I have 4 light sources. I have the overhead light in my dining room. I turn my living room lights. My living dining area are adjacent, so I turn the living room lights on or I open the window. I also have a selfie light that I attach to my computer, and I have a cheap IKEA paper lamp that provides a very nice diffused light. If you see my video, you can see that I'm quite well lit, and I think that helps us stay awake, and it helps us stay clear for our students. The second thing I want to point out is that my laptop is raised up on a couple of, they're actually ventilation platforms. They do have fans built in, and I sometimes use the fans and I sometimes don't. But I think that you should be, if you can, look at the camera. I don't look at the camera all the time, but if you want students to feel engaged, like I'm doing right now, you need to be looking directly at the camera. Another thing that is super important is a comfortable set of headphones. The headset that I'm using right now, I should move the mic a little bit. The headset that I'm using right now is my 3rd headset that I've tried. And one of the things I have to do is I have to pull it apart and stretch it, because I really can't stand the pain of having a headset too tight on my head. I'm a little bit sensitive to pressure and pain. So I have a set of comfortable headphones. Another thing you might be surprised is that I went to my school where I normally teach, and I brought home my ergonomic desk chair, so that if I'm sitting, normally when I'm teaching, I'm standing and I'm walking around, and I walk over to what the students are doing, and I walk and I write on the board. And this idea that I'm not walking around is very weird for me. So I felt it was super important to have especially good back support. I have some back issues that nobody knows about because I take good care of my back. And the last thing I have is my therapy puppy. Her name is Kiju, and about a month ago I decided that I really miss the hugs that I got from my students. I'm a big hugger, and I got hugs from a lot of my students every single day, and I really, really miss that. And I'm not recommending that people go out and get a dog if you don't know much about dogs. Dogs are a big responsibility, but having a pet really lowers my stress. So for me, part of being kind to myself is having a puppy to pet between classes. Okay, so the next secret is not really a secret, of course. It's about planning, but I want to give you some hints about planning. One of the things I was required to do, I taught for a few years at a private school that taught international students, and every Friday we had to submit our plan for the next week. And I had always done my planning in my head, and when I had to start submitting weekly plans and month plans and semester plans, I hated it. I thought, I want to respond to what happens in the news today. I want to respond to what's happening in my students' lives. And I don't want to be stuck in some rigid structure. But what I found over the years of doing it is that having a semester plan and a monthly plan and even a weekly plan helps me to relax. So what I've done is I've created a semester plan for level 5 to 8. And I've created a semester plan for levels 1 to 3. And I'm going to share in the chat at the end, I'm going to share a link to my Google Drive where you can download these. They're ready-made, they're ready to go. So you can use this exactly the way it is. You don't have to You don't have to change it at all if you don't want to. But if you want to, of course, it'll be in a Microsoft Word format, so you'll be able to make any changes that are appropriate. And of course, you know, do respond to what happens in the news, and do respond to what's happening in your students' lives. And we're going to talk about that in a moment too. Another thing that I use, and again, I'm going to be providing I'm actually, it's a book that I wrote of chart activities, but they could be group activities that you can do every week. And I use them as kind of the structure of my week. And I'm going to provide, I've made the book free for the next 4 days. So it's a 462 page book. And it includes a lesson plan. It includes the exact activity that you should do with the group. They can be done in breakout rooms. We'll talk about that in a minute. And it includes follow-up activities for conversations. So if you want something to make your classes easy to run, this is something you'll be able to download for free. So here's an example of my weekly plan. Now, again, you might think, oh my God, this is so stressful. But what happens is I take the time and I plan my month, and it takes me about half a day, because I've been doing this a long time maybe, but I'm providing for this for you. I've done one for the level 5 to 8, and I've done one for the level 1 to 3. The 3 to 5 I don't teach, so I don't actually have a plan for that. But I was thinking that if you download these two, there's stuff in each one of them that would apply to an intermediate class. So when I get to the Google Drive link, if you download this, your first week back of teaching is done for you. Okay? This is the 5 to 8 plan, and it is done for you. All the links are there, all the topics are there, and you're good to go. Supreet, could you mute your mic, please? Any questions? Does anyone have a question about this? Okay, I'll move on. All right, my second most important secret, oh, Supreet, yeah? Do you want to, you have a question? Go ahead, unmute and go ahead. Supreet, go ahead. And Shweta, go ahead and speak.
Sorry, my question is, I notice in your grid, each of those boxes have text that is hyperlinked. Is it linking to a file that's stored in your file folder that it's linking to?
I'm going to come to that a little bit. I basically, when we talk about resources, and I basically use ESL Library and ReadWorks and YouTube. And so almost all of these are either YouTube or ReadWorks or ESL Library. And they are live links that I checked this week. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. I'm just admitting some more participants who just showed up. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So the second thing is that if you are, you know, in a classroom, you would normally put your students together in groups or in pairs, and you would give them a worksheet to work on, and you would then walk around. You might sit at your desk and prepare tomorrow's lesson, or you might walk around and check to see how everybody's doing. And you know, one of the reasons we get Zoom exhaustion is because we have this feeling that we're the show, okay? La, 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 I'm it, okay? But what I have learned in the 8 months of teaching online is I should never be the only show. And so one of the things I tell my students is that this is not just a classroom, it's a community. And I strongly encourage my students to share their videos and their photos. And so one of my students has started a YouTube channel for baking. It's mostly in Korean, but she puts English subtitles in it, and I encourage her to, they're 3 or 4 minute videos. I encourage her to share those with the class. People have shared their Christmas tree pictures. Maria has shared a tour of her house at Christmas time. In the summertime, my students took the class on tours of their gardens. And, if you wanted to be technical about it, I mean, you could give them a skill using evaluation and put it in their portfolio. You don't have to do that, but you absolutely could do that. When I talk about resources, I'm going to tell you about how much I love ReadWorks, because it allows for reading and writing skill using on a weekly basis. So don't you be teaching all the time. Let the students take over some of the time. And the other thing I really recommend is letting the internet do some of the teaching. In my lower level class, my 1 to 3 class, I think I never have a class that we don't do something on the internet. Okay, 2 of my favorite ones, and I'm one of the things I'll be sharing when you go to my Google Drive. One of the things is called Kate's Resources, and in there, I include all the resources that I'm mentioning here in this presentation today. So you don't need to sit here and panic and take notes. It will all be in a handout at the end. So for example, if you don't know Mark Kulek, oh my goodness, if you teach a low level and you don't know Mark Kulek, you are really missing out. His videos are fantastic for teaching a low level class. They are listen and repeat. He starts by introducing what he does, and then he leaves a blank space for the student to try it out. You could have the students do the writing from there. It's just amazing. And he has hundreds. They are grammar, they are pronunciation, they are vocabulary. I've selected one here. I don't think I want to take your time tonight to show you, but I absolutely recommend that you check out Mark Kulek's YouTube channel. The other YouTube channel I do want to introduce you to, because if you have a low level or an intermediate level class, cross your fingers that this is
Homeowners are
going
raving
to
about
work.
LeafFilter, the proven solution that ends gutter cleaning forever.
If it keeps out shingle grit and pine needles, it'll keep out everything.
It's protected my home.
So blah, 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 there's an introduction. They tell a story. Here it is about Jack takes a sick day. Tell a
He
story.
also had a fever. There's no way I can go to work. I can't make it in today, boss. I have a fever of 103. Sounds like you have the flu. Go see a doctor. Jack called the doctor. The doctor can see you this morning at 10. The
That's a
doctor
dream.
examined Jack. You have the flu.
Okay, so first they start by just reading the story. Then they do it all as a dictation. So listen. Oops, sorry.
He had a headache. He was coughing and sneezing.
So what I do with my lower level class is they hear this. He was coughing and sneezing. I pause the video. I let them try to write it down. In my classroom, I can see them write it down. Over Zoom, I'm asking them to write it down. We could have them write it into a Google document, like a shared document, if you are, trying to keep track of it. So then you let the students write for a minute.
He was coughing and sneezing.
Then they can check themselves. Okay, so every sentence that was in the story is dictated and then shown. And then in the end, they do the whole story again with the text.
Drink plenty of fluids. Jack went home and crawled into bed.
Okay, so for low-level classes, you can see how listening to this, I have a 1-hour class with my lower level class, and this 6-minute video takes us 1 hour to do. I use it, I get the students to listen and repeat. I get the students to write things down. I stretch, stretch, stretch. And they love it. They love these activities. So you don't have to feel guilty that you're letting the internet help you. Of course, if you have a higher level class, you might want to use something like TED Ed, and probably you might already know about this if you teach a higher level class. But I wanted to tell you that I can stretch a 20-minute video into a 90-minute class. My morning class is a 90-minute class, and we will take a 20-minute video and it will take us 90 minutes to do it. How we do that is I will say the title, can you create a perfect farm? And I will put the students into breakout rooms to brainstorm what that might mean. What do you think that the speaker is going to say about a perfect farm? And you notice that the heading of the video is called The Future of Food. So what do you think will be in the video? Okay. I was thinking that if we had time today, I would put you in breakout rooms and I would let you brainstorm so that you could see. But basically how I do this is I will use MS Word as a whiteboard, and after they have gone into breakout rooms and brainstormed, I will have them come back and I will get them to tell me what their idea of a perfect farm is, for example, and I will type all of their answers. Okay, then we watch the video, and after we watch the video, we will come back to our Microsoft Word document and we will go through it point by point. How many of the points in the video did we guess would be in it? And if there was something that we guessed that was not in it, why do you think it was not in it? And if we missed some really important things, usually that's a talking point as well. And I also wanted to point out that TED Ed, if you look at TED Ed, there is watch, think, watch, think, and dig deeper and discuss. So there's a lot that you can do with, there's a lot that you can do with this video, okay? It doesn't have to be TED Ed. You could choose any video on anything. For my advanced class, they love TED Ed. If you haven't started to use it, I mean, there are whole workshops just on how to turn any TED Talk into a learning module. And the method that I gave you of using brainstorm, think, dig deeper, and discuss could be done with anything, whether or not it was a TED Ed or not. Okay? Do we have any questions about that before we move back into the next show? Okay. So we're going to brainstorm before we listen to the video. We're going to listen to the video and we're going to check to see how many of the points that we came up with in the brainstorm were covered in the video. And then I can put them in a group for discussion, and I can also have them write up a summary of what they saw in the video. And if you're doing PBLA, you can absolutely use this as a PBLA assessment. I don't make everything PBLA assessments because I don't want my students to hate me, but I really, you'll notice if you look at the plan that there are 2 PBLA assessments in the first week. Okay, it keeps jumping. Okay. Oh, I know why it keeps jumping, sorry. Okay, so you're going to use MS Word as a whiteboard. All right, a lot of my class depends on using Zoom. My class is very Zoom, I use Zoom and I try to use the features of Zoom. I do polls as quizzes. I use the chat feature as quizzes. If you have never used Zoom for teaching, there are some fantastic videos in YouTube on using Zoom for teaching online. And the chat function can be very useful. I use the chat to share hyperlinks. I use the chat to upload documents that I want them to look at or do for homework. And I use the chat to put in new vocabulary. And I just think that, you know, it's an amazing resource. My second favorite thing about Zoom are the breakout rooms. There is no day with my advanced class that my students do not go into breakout rooms. If you are feeling Zoom stress, if you are feeling really overwhelmed with teaching online, I'm telling you, it's because you're not using breakout rooms. So I want to do a little poll to find out for the people that are using breakout rooms. I want to know how you use breakout rooms. So you can select more than one of these. Do you do small group or pair brainstorming? Do you do pair or small group conversation? Do you do grammar pair work? Do you do surveys? Do you get pairs to write using writing prompts? Do you get people to do interview practice? And I do all of these. And I'll talk a little bit more about surveys when we get to resources. I didn't put an option for I don't use breakout rooms, because if you're doing Zoom and you're not using breakout rooms, you need to go on YouTube and learn how to use breakout rooms. They're really going to reduce your stress. Okay, it looks like we've got pretty much the responses we're going to get. About half of the people have responded. I'll give you another couple of seconds. Okay, so it looks like people are mostly using breakout rooms for small group and pair conversation and for brainstorming, which are fantastic. There's, there's no shortage of ESL conversation questions on the internet. If you can't think of a question, I try not to always use like 10 standard questions. If we're watching a video on the perfect farm, I don't give them any questions. I just say, here's a group, go together and brainstorm what you think will be in this video. If we're talking, I'll show you later on a thing about Donald Trump, and I will say, what do you think that this picture means? Okay, and it will be brainstorm. So I really think that breakout rooms can revolutionize your stress. So I do a lot of pair work in grammar, conversation, and interview practice, and I do a lot of surveys, conversation, and brainstorming with breakout rooms. And here I'm saying let's try it, but I think with our timing tonight, we're not going to try it. If you've never been in a breakout room, it's just like being in a Zoom meeting, except it's a smaller group. I try to limit the groups to 3 or 4 people maximum. So, and I try not to put like husbands and wives in the same group, and to mix up the group. So I often assign the participants manually. Okay, my next secret is limit your resources. If you're looking at the resources online for teaching English, it looks a little bit like this banquet. And I'm really hungry because we haven't had dinner yet, but I look at this banquet and I want, especially because it's a lot of dessert and I love dessert, I want everything on it. But the problem is that teaching, if you're looking at online resources, you get resource after resource after resource, and you get overwhelmed and you feel like you can't do it. And then you need to go have a nap, or you need to go and watch TV for a while because you feel overwhelmed. That is not good. The resources are wonderful, but one of my secrets is choose 3 and stick with them. So my 3 main resources that I use every single week are YouTube, ESL Library, and ReadWorks. Now, YouTube is obviously free, and ReadWorks right now is free. Well, I don't know if it'll continue to be free. If you've never used ReadWorks, they have a free webinar on getting started, and it is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. You know, getting my students to do homework, when I was in a classroom, I would say maybe 25% of them did homework when I assigned homework. But the homework that I assigned through ESL Library and through ReadWorks, both of those, I have fantastic buy-in. I would say at least half of my students are participating in doing homework. And the most amazing thing is I can go in and I can see who did what and how well they did. If I assigned a reading assignment to them and everybody bombed it, well, that tells me something, that I did not prepare them well for that, or that it was too difficult, and I'll make the next one a little bit easier. If everybody gets 100%, okay, I'm going to boost the next one up a little bit. So don't look for a smorgasbord for every single lesson, okay? Sorry, I'm just going to admit somebody. If you're not an internet person, there's absolutely no reason why you can't choose 3 books. Focus on Grammar, I think, is an excellent, excellent series. It's available in a bunch of different levels. You'd have to find the level appropriate for your class. For the lower levels, English Made Easy is really great using pictures, and it's great for conversation, it's great for vocabulary, it's great for getting people to talk. And if you've got an intermediate or an advanced class and you want to teach idioms, a year in the life of an ESL student, what I actually do with my class when I had a in-person class is I got everybody to buy this. I think it was maybe $25. All of my students bought it, so I didn't have to make 1 million copies. They could work in their own book, and it's a really, really great book. And I will give you links to all of these. Now for the shameless self-promotion. You know, a big part of what I do with my own classes every week and every month are my own materials. And I have written 3, well, I've written a lot more, but I've written 3 ESL books. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to be giving away a copy of the 101 Secrets of Canadian Culture and the Teacher's Workbook. The other book, 52 + 2 weeks of English group activities, I've made free on Teachers Pay Teachers. You're going to get a link to that as well. I've made it free until Sunday. Okay, it's 462 pages, and it'll be $5 after Sunday. But right now, for the people who attended this this presentation, it's going to be free. The last point that I have is that if you're going to give assignments, it needs to be pretty easy to hand in assignments. ESL Library and ReadWorks, they're not handing anything in. They're getting their responses in that website, which is fantastic. And I can print a report that I can then include with my PBLA skill using results. The other two things that I really depend on are Google Classroom for my higher level. And you notice here, it's ESL Library and it's ReadWorks. ESL Library, ReadWorks, ESL Library, ReadWorks. All of the assignments are assigned and they all have due dates. The lower level class is having trouble managing. Google Classroom is a little bit tricky, so I've got them using WhatsApp. If you don't know how to use these for students to hand them in, again, I recommend going to YouTube and doing teaching online using WhatsApp, teaching online using Google Classroom. I don't have time in this presentation today to teach you how to do these. That's a separate presentation, which I could do maybe in the spring if you're interested. My last point is to set a regular due date. It's a really good idea to make all assignments due, say, you could choose whatever day you want, but for me, Friday at 5 p.m. is really good. That lets the students know that you're taking even though it's an online assignment, that you're taking it seriously. And it also, it provides a little bit of pressure to them to actually do it and get it done for some reason. And my last point is, and this one of the second most important thing people were looking for was keeping students interested. And I learned this from a good friend of mine. Some of you may know her, Halima Jaffer, and she taught me engage before you teach. And so in her class, she would put up one of these pictures or both of these pictures, and she would just say, you know, talk amongst yourselves. Like, you know, what do you think about, do you understand the fat lady sings? Do you understand what is happening in the picture on the right? And you're not telling and you're not judging, you're just asking people for feedback. And that again takes the focus off of the teacher and it puts the focus on the students. So, you know, learner-centered teaching is lower stress teaching. Okay, so you can get the students really engaged by finding some fun cartoon and stick it up first thing in the class. Often I will have something like this. My students, before they see my face, they might see a picture like this. And they will, you know, they will be talking among themselves. I don't even say anything. I just let them talk among themselves to try to figure out, why did Kate put that up? They know me well enough to know that if there's a picture up before I start talking, it's because I want them to react. I want to find out what they think about it. Sometimes, like the one on the left, they don't understand it at all. Why is he dressed like a Viking? What does it mean, fat lady sings? And that's a whole lesson all in itself. It's a cultural lesson. Okay, and the one on the right is somebody's opinion about what is happening, and you know, you can have them react to that. Do they think that it's accurate? Do they agree with it? Do they disagree with it? I'm not giving political opinions. I'm just offering challenging and maybe interesting ideas for them to engage with. So you'll see on the right-hand side there, this is the worksheet that you're going to get. It's going to be websites that I recommend for all levels, which ESL Library and ReadWorks are in it. It's websites for 1 to 3, 3 to 5, and 5 to 8. It's advice for advice for using breakout rooms, and then it's a list of all of the resources that I will put in on my Google Drive. So hang on one second. I'm going to go and get I'm going to pick up the Google Drive link to put in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And in the chat, I'm going to put a link to the Google Drive. Did I put it to everyone? No, I didn't. Let me put it to everyone. So in that link are all my 3 semester plan for the 3 months, my 52-week plan from the book, links to the free book and to my other books on Amazon, and the websites that I use every day to help me survive teaching online. So the last thing I want to do is I want to give away a copy of the books. You'll have to scan them and share the scan, because, well, this one you can get a Kindle version, but this one I did not make a Kindle version. I thought we would be in classes and that teachers would be making photocopies. So if Alex would please draw a number, and he can let me know, and I will mail a copy of the 2 books to the winning teacher.